I won tickets for a romantic getaway, and upon arriving at the hotel, I realized that a terrible mistake had occurred. At 43, my routine life as a devoted wife took an unexpected turn. A surprise romantic present from my husband made me realize that I needed some time alone. I decided to go on a solo trip without him, but on the first night at the hotel, I was woken up by a stranger opening my door. My name is Megan and I am 43 years old. Every morning for more than 10 years, I woke up before the sun came up. I would quietly slip out of bed so I would not wake Neil, my husband. The house was always cold and dark at that early hour. I would turn on the kitchen lights and start making breakfast. I also packed his lunch every single day. This was my life. I cleaned the house from top to bottom every day. I cooked all the meals. I washed all the dishes. I did all the laundry. I made sure Neil had clean clothes and everything he needed. Nobody ever asked me if I wanted to do these things. It was just what wives were supposed to do, or at least that is what everyone told me. On this particular morning, I was standing in the kitchen making breakfast like always. The coffee was brewing and making that familiar bubbling sound. The bacon was cooking in the pan and making a sizzling noise. I cracked 2 eggs and put them in another pan. Neil always wanted his eggs cooked in a special way, and I knew exactly how he liked them after all these years. I put everything on his plate and set it on the table. The kitchen smelled good with all the food cooking. I had done this same thing thousands of times before. Every morning was exactly the same. Wake up early, make breakfast, pack lunch, clean up, and then spend the day doing housework until Neil came home. Neil finally came into the kitchen. His hair was messy and sticking up in different directions. He looked like he had just woken up, which he had. He never looked happy in the mornings. He just mumbled morning in a quiet voice and sat down at the table. He started eating his breakfast without saying anything else to me. I watched him eat and thought about how many mornings had been exactly like this one. Neil would eat his breakfast, take his lunch that I made for him, and go to work. Then he would come home in the evening. Sometimes he was tired from work. Sometimes he smelled like beer because he went to the bar with his friends after work. He never asked me about my day or what I had done while he was gone. But today was going to be different. I had been waiting for this moment for weeks. "Honey, I have great news for you," I said to Neil. I was so excited that I could barely contain myself. Neil looked up from his plate. He seemed a bit more awake now. "What is it?" he asked. I reached into my purse and pulled out 2 plane tickets. I held them up so he could see them clearly. "I won these in a radio contest," I explained with a big smile on my face. "They are tickets for a romantic weekend trip to Florida for 2 people. I had been so excited about this trip. I thought it would be perfect for us. We had not gone anywhere together in such a long time. We had not done anything fun or romantic in years. I thought this would be exactly what we needed to bring us closer together." But Neil's reaction was not what I expected at all. He looked upset and even irritated with me. He put down his fork and shook his head. "Why didn't you tell me about this earlier? I can't go anywhere this weekend. I already made plans to watch the big game with my friends this weekend." My heart sank when I heard this. I had been so sure that we would go together. I thought he would be as excited as I was. I had imagined us walking on the beach together and having romantic dinners and just spending time together without any distractions. "But Neil," I said, trying not to sound disappointed, "this is a free trip to Florida. We never go anywhere together anymore." "I said I can't go," Neil said firmly. "My friends are counting on me to be there for the game. You should have asked me first before entering any contest." I felt my excitement disappear completely. I tried to hide how disappointed I was. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I'll try to sell the tickets or give them away. I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier." I put the tickets back into my purse and felt like I wanted to cry. But I didn't want Neil to see me upset, so I kept my feelings inside like I always did. After Neil finished his breakfast, I helped him get ready for work like I did every morning. I gave him his lunch that I had packed for him. We said goodbye at the door, and I watched him drive away. As soon as the door closed behind him, I felt a mix of sadness and frustration wash over me. I stood there in the quiet house and wondered why I was always the one who had to give up things I wanted. Why was it always me who had to make sacrifices? I decided to call the radio station to see if I could return the tickets. Maybe they could give them to someone else who would actually use them. The woman who answered the phone sounded surprised when I told her I wanted to return the tickets. "We don't usually have people wanting to return prizes like this," she said. "These are really valuable tickets to a beautiful resort. But I'm sorry, we can't take the tickets back." There's not enough time for us to give them away to someone else. After I hung up the phone, I sat at the kitchen table and looked at the tickets. I thought about what the woman at the radio station had said. These were valuable tickets to a beautiful resort. Then I had a thought that surprised me. Why should I miss out on this vacation just because my husband didn't want to go? If he wanted to stay home and watch TV with his friends, that was his choice. But why did I have to stay here and cook for him and his friends while they watched the game? I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. I felt determined to do something for myself. I looked at my watch and realized that if I was going to use these tickets, I needed to leave soon. The flight was that evening, and I had a lot to do to get ready. I quickly went upstairs and got my suitcase out of the closet. I started packing clothes for the weekend. As I folded my clothes and put them in the suitcase, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. I had never done anything like this before. I had never gone anywhere by myself. But the more I thought about it, the more excited I became. For the first time in years, I was going to do something just for me. I was going to decide for myself how to spend my weekend. I made sure to leave enough food in the refrigerator for Neil and his friends for the weekend. I wrote a note explaining where I had gone and that I would be back on Sunday evening. I wanted to make sure he would be okay while I was gone, even though he had chosen not to come with me. Then, with my heart pounding with anticipation, I left the house with my suitcase. The drive to the airport felt like the longest drive of my life. I kept thinking that maybe I should turn around and go home. But then I reminded myself that I deserved to have some fun and adventure in my life too. By the time I got to Florida and arrived at the hotel, it was very late at night. The lobby was quiet and dimly lit. Most people were already asleep in their rooms. I walked up to the reception desk where a young woman with dark hair was working the night shift. "Good evening," she said with a tired smile. "How can I help you?" "I have a reservation," I told her, and I gave her my identification. She typed something into her computer and nodded. "Yes, here you are. Room 302. Here's your key card. I hope you have a wonderful stay with us." I thanked her and took my suitcase to the elevator. The ride up to the third floor felt like it took forever. I was so tired from all the travel and all the excitement of the day. When I finally got to my room, I was exhausted. The bed looked incredibly comfortable and inviting. I quickly changed out of my clothes and got ready for bed. As soon as my head hit the pillow, I fell into a deep, peaceful sleep. But sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up suddenly. My heart was beating fast because I heard strange sounds coming from the door. Someone was trying to get into my room. I could hear them putting a key card into the door lock. I was terrified. I quickly got out of bed and looked around the room for something to protect myself with. I grabbed a small lamp from the bedside table and hid behind the wall near the door. The door opened slowly, and I could see the shadow of a person coming into the room. Without thinking, I swung the lamp as hard as I could and hit the person on the head. They fell to the floor with a loud noise. "What are you doing?" the person shouted. It was a man's voice, and he sounded more surprised than angry. "Who are you? What are you doing in my room in the middle of the night?" I shouted back. I was still holding the lamp, ready to hit him again if I needed to. "Your room," he said, rubbing his head where I had hit him. "This is my room. I won tickets to this hotel from a radio contest." I stared at him in shock. "That's impossible. I won tickets from a radio contest too, and this was supposed to be a contest for couples. You're here alone." "My girlfriend was supposed to come with me, but she got delayed," he explained. "She said she would come tomorrow. And you're alone too." I realized that something had gone very wrong. This must be some kind of mistake by the hotel. They must have given us both keys to the same room by accident. "I'm so sorry," I said, putting the lamp down. "This must be a mix-up by the hotel staff." The man nodded, still holding his head where I had hit him. I felt terrible about hurting him. I got some ice from the small refrigerator in the room and wrapped it in a towel. "Here," I said, "put this on your head where I hit you." We called the front desk to report the problem. The person who answered was very apologetic about the mistake. They explained that there had been a computer error and 2 different contest winners had been given keys to the same room. The problem was that the hotel was completely full for the weekend. There were no other rooms available for either of us. They offered to give us some money back for the inconvenience, but that didn't solve the problem of where we would sleep. I was in despair. I was so tired, and it was the middle of the night. I had nowhere else to go. The man, who told me his name was Thomas, suggested that maybe we could share the room for just one night. We could put pillows down the middle of the bed to separate our sides, and in the morning we could figure out a better solution. I didn't really have any other choice. I was too tired to think of anything else, and I certainly couldn't afford to pay for another hotel room somewhere else. I'm really sorry about hitting you with the lamp, I said to Thomas again. It's okay, he replied with a small smile. I probably would have done the same thing if I thought someone was breaking into my room. We arranged the pillows down the middle of the big bed to create a barrier between us, and then we both went to sleep on our separate sides. It felt very strange and awkward to be sharing a room with a complete stranger, but I was so exhausted that I fell asleep quickly anyway. In the morning, I woke up before Thomas did. The sunlight was coming through the curtains, and I could see the bruise on his forehead where I had hit him with the lamp the night before. I felt so ashamed and guilty about hurting him. I got dressed quietly, trying not to wake him up. I decided to go downstairs to the hotel store to buy some food, so I could make breakfast for him. It seemed like the least I could do after giving him a head injury. The hotel store was small but had everything I needed. I bought bread, eggs, cheese, and some other things to make sandwiches. I also got some coffee and juice. When I got back to the room, I made sandwiches and brewed coffee. The smell of the food filled the room, and I hoped Thomas would like what I had made for him. While I was setting up the food, I heard Thomas's phone ring. He answered it in a sleepy voice, but then his tone changed completely. He started talking very quietly, and he sounded upset and sad. I couldn't help but listen to his conversation. From what I could hear, he was talking to his girlfriend. It did not sound like a happy conversation at all. When he finished the call, I greeted him and invited him to have breakfast with me. Good morning, I said. I made some food for us. I'm really sorry about last night with the lamp. Thomas tried to smile, but I could see that his eyes were red and he looked like he might cry. If you need to leave early to meet your girlfriend, I completely understand, I offered. But Thomas shook his head sadly. She's not coming anymore, he said quietly. She broke up with me this morning over the phone. My heart went out to him. I could see how hurt he was. I'm so sorry, Thomas, I said. Do you want to talk about it? He shook his head again. No, not really. But thank you for making breakfast. It smells really good. We sat down to eat together, and I watched as Thomas tasted the sandwiches I had made. A small smile appeared on his face for the first time that morning. These are really delicious, he said. I don't think I've ever had sandwiches that taste this good. I was happy to see him smile, even if it was just a little bit. I'm glad you like them, I replied. I wanted to make it up to you for hitting you with the lamp. Thomas actually laughed a little bit at that, and we started talking about other things. We shared stories about our lives, and I found myself laughing and enjoying his company. It had been such a long time since I had talked to someone who seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. With Neil, I never felt like I had anything interesting to share. But with Thomas, I realized that I actually was an interesting person with thoughts and experiences worth sharing. Since neither of us has any plans now, Thomas said after we finished breakfast, why don't we make the most of today? It would be a shame to waste a free day at this beautiful resort. I agreed completely. We decided to explore the area around the hotel together. We spent the morning walking around a nearby park. There were beautiful flowers blooming everywhere, and there was a peaceful lake with ducks swimming in it. We talked about everything and nothing, just enjoying each other's company and the beautiful day. In the afternoon, we walked along the beach. The sand was warm under our feet, and we let the waves wash over our toes. The ocean was so blue and beautiful. I couldn't remember the last time I had felt so relaxed and happy. As the day went on, I realized that I was having more fun than I had had in years. Thomas was easy to talk to, and he made me laugh. He asked me questions about my life and my thoughts, and he actually listened to my answers. That evening, we decided to have dinner at one of the best restaurants in the area. The food was incredible, and the atmosphere was perfect. We had wine with dinner and talked late into the evening. By the end of the day, I realized that I would have to go home soon. Thomas walked me back to our hotel room, where we both packed our things and got ready to check out the next morning. As we stood by the door saying goodbye, I felt sad that this wonderful day was ending. I wanted to stay with Thomas longer, but at the same time, I felt guilty for having these thoughts. I knew that my husband Neil was at home waiting for me. Thomas must have noticed that I seemed hesitant to leave. If you ever want to talk or if you need a friend, you have my phone number now, he said kindly. Thank you, Thomas, I replied. You made this trip unforgettable. He called a taxi for me to take me to the airport, and we exchanged phone numbers. As the taxi drove away from the hotel, I couldn't stop thinking about how much this unexpected meeting had changed something inside me. When I got home, instead of finding a loving husband who had missed me, I found Neil drunk and angry. The house smelled like stale beer, and there were empty bottles and food containers everywhere. He had clearly spent the weekend drinking and watching TV with his friends without bothering to clean up anything. As soon as I walked through the door, Neil started yelling at me. "How dare you leave without asking my permission first?" he shouted. His face was red with anger, and he could barely stand up straight. On any other day before this weekend, I would have stayed quiet and tried to avoid making him even more angry. I would have apologized and started cleaning up his mess. But something had changed in me during my time away. I felt stronger and clearer about what I wanted from my life. "It's over between us, Neil," I said calmly but firmly. I took off my wedding ring and threw it on the kitchen floor. The ring made a small clinking sound as it hit the tiles. That tiny sound seemed to represent the end of our entire marriage. I didn't want to spend another day in this house, doing everything for someone who never appreciated me or cared about what I wanted. Without saying another word to Neil, I went upstairs and got my suitcase again. I packed some of my most important belongings. My heart was beating fast, but I felt free for the first time in years. I took my suitcase and left the house. I called a taxi and asked the driver to take me to the airport. As I sat in the back seat of the taxi, I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I was scared about what would happen next, but I was also excited about the possibilities. I called Thomas from the taxi. My voice was shaking with both excitement and fear. "Thomas, it's me," I said. "I would like to spend more time with you if that's okay." His response was immediate and warm. "Nothing would make me happier," he said. This time I bought a one-way ticket. I was never going back to the life that had held me back for so long. As the taxi drove toward the airport, I looked out the window at the life I was leaving behind, and I felt hopeful about the future for the first time in years.